Direct News TV. June 23, 2023. U.S. says, engaging with Israel after West Bank settler attacks. White House National Security spokesman John Kirby has said the United States is actively engaging with Israel following an Israeli settler attack on a Palestinian village in the occupied West Bank that is home to many Palestinian Americans. During a news conference on Friday, Kirby said several U.S. government officials had met with victims of the attack in Termis Aya, a village near Ramallah. On Wednesday, residents said about 400 Israeli settlers had stormed the village and set cars, homes, and vast tracts of farmland on fire before Israeli forces then descended upon the community. At least one Palestinian, 27-year-old Omar Khattan, a father of two who worked as an electrician for the local municipality, was killed in the violence and several others were injured. We've certainly seen reports now of U.S. citizens having become victims of some of the violence, and we're actively engaging with the government of Israel about that, Kirby told reporters on Friday, without providing further detail. The assault on Termis Aya came amid a string of similar settler attacks near Nablus, a city in the occupied West Bank, in an apparent response to Palestinian gunmen killing 4 Israeli settlers near the Ely settlement. Palestinian and international human rights groups have long decried Israel's failure or refusal to halt attacks by settlers in the occupied Palestinian territories. And in recent months, they have accused key members of the Israeli government, including far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, of condoning the violence. On Thursday, Tom Nides, the U.S. ambassador to Israel, made an uncharacteristically firm call for Israel to take action to stem the attacks. "We do not stand and watch settler violence," Nides said during a meeting of Israeli and Palestinian youth in Tel Aviv, as reported by Israeli media. "I've been very clear and very specific that we will not stand by, and we're pushing the Israelis to take whatever action they need to take to stop those people," he said. "At the same time, my heart breaks for the families that lost a loved one 48 hours ago. My heart breaks for all these families." The statements represent a shift in tone from the Biden administration, said Michael Omerman, Director of Research for Israel-Palestine at Democracy for the Arab World Now, DAWN, a U.S.-based advocacy group. "But meaningful action from the U.S. is less likely," he said, although targeted travel restrictions on Israeli settlers accused of violence could be on the table. "I think the difference that we're seeing here is that this administration, which is particularly averse to conflict with Israel, has designated Ben-Gvir, Smotrich, and the sort of violent, aggressive, unapologetic settler movement as targets within the Israeli government that they are willing to criticize publicly," Omerman told Al Jazeera. "But if they're not holding the broader Israeli government to account for that, then I don't know what it's worth," he said. "The level of what the U.S. is willing to do, the scope of what they're willing to do, is so little, it's hard to draw hope from that." Despite publicly opposing the expansion of illegal Israeli settlements, which eat into a future Palestinian state, the Biden administration remains a staunch defender of Israel. The U.S. has long hailed its ironclad relationship with the country, which receives about $3.8 billion in unconditional aid from Washington annually. Earlier this week, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced his government had approved 1,000 new settler homes in Ely, calling the move a response to terror. On Friday, Israeli National Security Minister Gvir, speaking at a settler outpost in Mount Sabi, called on the government to launch a widespread military campaign in the West Bank and to expand illegal settlements, according to Israeli media. That came as the United Nations Human Rights Chief Volker Turk warned that violence in the West Bank risks spiraling out of control, amid Israel's use of heavy weaponry. After Israeli forces stormed the Jenin refugee camp on Monday, Israel for the first time in 20 years used helicopter gunships in the occupied West Bank to attack the camp. On Friday, Israeli National Security Minister Gvir, speaking at a settler outpost in Mount Sabi, called on the government to launch a widespread military campaign in the West Bank and to expand illegal settlements, according to Israeli media. That came as the United Nations Human Rights Chief Volker Turk warned that violence in the West Bank risks spiraling out of control, amid Israel's use of heavy weaponry. After Israeli forces stormed the Jenin refugee camp on Monday, Israel for the first time in 20 years used helicopter gunships in the occupied West Bank to attack the camp. At least 7 Palestinians, including children, were killed and 91 others were injured. Turk said on Friday that the raid was a major intensification of the use of weaponry more generally associated with the conduct of armed hostilities, rather than a law enforcement situation. Israel also conducted its first known targeted drone strike in the West Bank on Wednesday. The Israeli military said the drone had killed 3 Palestinian gunmen that opened fire at a checkpoint north of Jenin. My name is Kingsley. Please like, share, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be the first to be notified whenever we post. You won't regret it.